Today, I would like to speak about Rikers Island, one of the most well-known jail complexes in the United States. Located in New York City, Rikers Island has become a symbol of the challenges within the American criminal justice system. Rikers Island is not a prison for long-term punishment. It is mainly a jail where people are held before trial or while serving short sentences. Thousands of individuals pass through this facility every year. Many of them have not yet been convicted of a crime, which raises important questions about justice and fairness. Over the years, Rikers Island has gained national attention because of reports of violence, overcrowding, poor living conditions, and mental health issues among inmates. Human rights organizations, journalists, and former inmates have described the environment as dangerous and unhealthy. These conditions have sparked debates about how inmates should be treated and whether the American justice system needs reform. Another major issue connected to Rikers Island is poverty and inequality. Many detainees cannot afford bail, so they remain in jail while waiting for their court hearings. This shows how financial problems can affect a person's freedom and future. Despite these challenges, there have been calls for change. Activists, lawyers, and community leaders have pushed for reforms such as improving inmate treatment, expanding mental health services, and reducing unnecessary detention. New York City officials have even discussed plans to close Rikers Island and replace it with smaller, modern facilities. Rikers Island teaches us an important lesson. A justice system should not only punish wrongdoing but also respect human dignity and provide opportunities for rehabilitation. Every society is judged by how it treats its most vulnerable people. In conclusion, Rikers Island is more than just a jail. It is a reflection of larger social issues such as justice, equality, mental health, and human rights in America. By learning about places like Rikers Island, we can better understand the need for compassion, fairness, and reform in society. Rikers Island is one of the largest and most famous jail complexes in the United States. It is located on an island between the boroughs of Queens and the Bronx in New York City. The jail complex consists of several separate facilities that house thousands of inmates every year. Because of its size and history, Rikers Island has become widely known across America and around the world. The facility was established many decades ago and was designed to hold people who are waiting for trial or serving short-term sentences. Unlike long-term prisons, Rikers Island mainly functions as a detention center where accused individuals stay while their legal cases are being processed. This means that many people inside the jail have not yet been found guilty of any crime. Over time, Rikers Island has become a symbol of the American criminal justice system. News reports, documentaries, books, and human rights organizations have frequently discussed the conditions inside the jail. The name, Rikers Island, is often connected with overcrowding, violence, strict security measures, and concerns about inmate safety. Because of these issues, the jail has attracted attention from politicians, activists, journalists, and legal experts who continue to debate whether the facility represents justice or failure within the system. The island itself is heavily secured, with restricted access and guarded entry points. Thousands of correction officers, medical workers, and staff members work there every day to manage operations. Despite its purpose of maintaining law and order, the facility has faced criticism for the way inmates are treated and for the difficult environment experienced by both prisoners and staff members. One of the most important facts about Rikers Island is that a large number of the people detained there have not been convicted of a crime. Many inmates are simply waiting for their court hearings and legal decisions. In the American justice system, every person is considered innocent until proven guilty in court. However, while waiting for trial, many individuals are still placed in jail for days, months, or even years depending on the complexity of their cases. This situation has created major debates about fairness and human rights. Some detainees remain in jail because they cannot afford bail, which is money paid to secure temporary release before trial. Wealthier individuals are often able to pay bail and continue living freely while their cases proceed, but poorer people may stay behind bars even for smaller offenses. This has led many critics to argue that the system sometimes punishes poverty instead of crime. The experience of being jailed before conviction can deeply affect a person's life. Many detainees lose their jobs, face separation from their families, and suffer emotional stress while waiting for their trials. Young people, in particular, may struggle with fear, anxiety, and exposure to violence inside the jail environment. Even if they are later declared innocent, the time spent in detention can leave lasting damage on their mental health, education, and future opportunities. Another concern is the slow pace of legal proceedings. The court delays, overcrowded case systems, and limited legal support often extend the amount of time detainees spend at Rikers Island. Some inmates accept plea deals simply to leave jail sooner, even when they may believe they are innocent. Legal experts and activists argue that this creates pressure within the justice system and raises serious questions about equality under the law. Because so many people at Rikers Island are awaiting trial rather than serving punishment, the jail has become a central example in discussions about bail reform, legal rights, and criminal justice reform in America. Human rights groups believe that detention before conviction should be used only when absolutely necessary, especially since every accused person still has the constitutional right to a fair trial and equal treatment under the law. Rikers Island has gained a reputation over many years for violence, unsafe living conditions, and serious problems inside the facility. Reports from former inmates, correction officers, journalists, and human rights organizations have described the jail as one of the most troubled detention centers in the United States. Stories of inmate fights, gang activity, abuse, and neglect have frequently appeared in the media, bringing national attention to the conditions within the jail complex. One major issue at Rikers Island is overcrowding. Large numbers of detainees are often housed in limited spaces, creating tension and stress among inmates. Overcrowded conditions can lead to conflicts, lack of privacy, and unhealthy living environments. In some cases, inmates have complained about dirty cells, broken facilities, poor ventilation, and insufficient medical care. These harsh conditions can make daily life extremely difficult and increase frustration inside the jail. Violence between inmates has also been a serious concern. Many reports describe physical assaults, intimidation, and gang-related conflicts occurring inside different housing units. Some detainees, especially younger or mentally vulnerable individuals, may become targets of bullying or abuse. Correction officers themselves have also faced accusations of using excessive force against inmates. Investigations and legal cases over the years have highlighted incidents involving beatings, mistreatment, and failure to protect prisoners from harm. The stressful environment affects not only inmates but also staff members working in the jail. Correction officers often operate under dangerous and tense conditions, facing pressure from overcrowding, understaffing, and constant security risks. This creates an atmosphere where fear, aggression, and mistrust can grow on both sides. Experts argue that such an environment makes rehabilitation almost impossible because survival and safety become the main concerns for everyone inside the facility. Healthcare and sanitation problems have added to the criticism of Rikers Island. Inmates have reported delays in receiving medical treatment, shortages of mental health support, and poor responses to emergencies. Human rights organizations have stated that people suffering from mental illness are especially vulnerable in the jail system. Some detainees with serious psychological conditions have struggled without proper care, leading to tragic incidents including self-harm and suicide attempts. Because of these ongoing problems, Rikers Island has become a symbol of failure in the American correctional system for many people. Civil rights groups, lawyers, activists, and community organizations have repeatedly demanded reforms to improve safety, reduce violence, and ensure humane treatment for detainees. Investigations by government agencies and independent organizations have continued to reveal troubling details about life inside the jail, strengthening public debates about whether such conditions should exist in a modern justice system. Mental health has become one of the most serious and widely discussed issues inside Rikers Island. A large number of inmates detained at the jail suffer from psychological disorders, emotional trauma, depression, anxiety, or other mental health conditions. Many experts believe that the correctional system is not properly equipped to care for individuals who need medical and psychological treatment rather than punishment alone. Life inside the jail can be extremely stressful and emotionally damaging. Inmates often experience fear, loneliness, uncertainty about their future, and pressure from violence within the facility. For people who already struggle with mental illness, these harsh conditions can make their symptoms much worse. Some detainees may become withdrawn, emotionally unstable, or unable to cope with daily prison life. Reports from medical staff and human rights organizations have shown that many inmates at Rikers Island require urgent psychological support and long-term treatment. Another major concern is the lack of adequate mental health care services. Although doctors, counselors, and medical units are present at the facility, critics argue that the resources are still insufficient for the large number of inmates needing help. Delays in treatment, limited access to therapy, and overcrowded medical units can prevent prisoners from receiving proper care. In some situations, mentally ill inmates have reportedly been placed in isolation or disciplinary housing instead of receiving professional psychological support. Experts warn that solitary confinement can severely damage a person's mental health, especially for those already suffering from emotional disorders. Young inmates and vulnerable detainees are often at the highest risk. Teenagers and individuals with developmental or emotional difficulties may struggle to survive in a stressful jail environment filled with aggression and fear. Exposure to violence, threats, and humiliation can lead to long-lasting trauma. Some former inmates have spoken about experiencing panic attacks, insomnia, emotional breakdowns, and severe depression during their time at Rikers Island. Even after release, many continue to suffer from psychological effects that impact their relationships, education, and ability to rebuild their lives. There have also been tragic cases involving self-harm and suicide attempts inside the jail. Advocacy groups and investigators have pointed to these incidents as evidence that the mental health crisis within the facility requires urgent attention. Families of inmates, civil rights organizations, and medical professionals have repeatedly called for better psychiatric care, improved living conditions, and alternative treatment programs for people with serious mental illnesses. Many believe that individuals struggling with mental health conditions should receive rehabilitation and healthcare support rather than being trapped in a harmful environment that can worsen their condition. The mental health crisis at Rikers Island has become an important part of larger debates about criminal justice reform in America. Critics argue that jails should not become substitutes for hospitals or mental health institutions. They believe society must address the root causes of crime, trauma, addiction, and emotional suffering instead of relying only on incarceration. The situation at Rikers Island continues to raise difficult questions about compassion, public safety, human dignity, and the responsibility of the justice system toward vulnerable individuals. One of the biggest criticisms of the system connected to Rikers Island is that many people remain in jail not because they are dangerous criminals, but because they cannot afford to pay bail. Bail is a payment that allows an accused person to leave jail temporarily while waiting for trial. The purpose of bail is to ensure that the person returns to court for future hearings. However, in practice, the bail system has created major inequalities between wealthy and poor individuals. For many low-income detainees, even a small bail amount can be impossible to pay. A person accused of a minor offense may still remain locked inside Rikers Island simply because they do not have enough money or financial support from family members. Meanwhile, wealthier individuals charged with similar or even more serious crimes may be able to pay bail quickly and continue their normal lives outside jail. This difference has caused many activists and legal experts to argue that the system unfairly punishes poverty. The impact of staying in jail before trial can be devastating. Many detainees lose their jobs because they are unable to report to work for long periods. Parents may become separated from their children, families may struggle financially, and students may miss important education opportunities. Even short periods of detention can damage a person's reputation and emotional well-being. Some individuals face pressure, fear, and stress while trying to survive inside a difficult jail environment. People who remain in jail because they cannot afford bail are often placed in overcrowded housing units with individuals accused of more serious crimes. This can expose them to violence, intimidation, and dangerous conditions. Critics say that a person who has not yet been convicted should not suffer such harsh treatment simply because of financial hardship. Human rights organizations believe this situation weakens the principle of equal justice under the law. Another major concern is that long pretrial detention can influence legal decisions. Some detainees agree to plea bargains, where they admit guilt in exchange for a shorter sentence or immediate release, even when they may believe they are innocent. They may choose this option simply to escape the harsh conditions of jail and return to their families. Legal experts argue that this creates unfair pressure and can damage trust in the justice system. The issue of bail at Rikers Island has become a central topic in debates about criminal justice reform across the United States. Reform supporters argue that detention decisions should be based on public safety and risk, not on a person's financial situation. Some states and cities have already introduced changes to reduce cash bail for minor offenses and expand alternatives, such as supervised release programs. These reforms aim to prevent unnecessary detention and reduce the number of people held in jail only because they are poor. The situation at Rikers Island continues to highlight how economic inequality can affect freedom, legal rights, and access to justice. For many critics, the jail has become an example of how poverty and social disadvantage can push vulnerable people deeper into hardship within the criminal justice system. Rikers Island is often viewed as more than just a jail complex because it reflects many deeper problems within the American criminal justice system. Over the years, the facility has become a powerful symbol in national debates about fairness, inequality, human rights, policing, and incarceration. Lawyers, journalists, activists, and political leaders frequently use Rikers Island as an example when discussing the weaknesses and failures of the justice system in the United States. One major issue highlighted by Rikers Island is the unequal treatment of people based on economic status and social background. Many detainees come from poor communities and minority populations that already face unemployment, limited education opportunities, and difficult living conditions. Critics argue that these communities are more heavily affected by policing and incarceration, which creates a cycle of poverty and imprisonment. As a result, Rikers Island has become connected to larger discussions about racial inequality and social injustice in America. The jail also exposes problems related to overcrowding and mass incarceration. The United States has one of the highest incarceration rates in the world, with millions of people moving through jails and prisons every year. Facilities like Rikers Island struggle to manage large populations of detainees, leading to unsafe conditions, stress on staff, and reduced access to healthcare and rehabilitation programs. Many experts believe the system focuses too heavily on punishment instead of prevention, education, and community support. Another issue revealed by Rikers Island is the slow and complicated legal process faced by many detainees. Court delays, long waiting periods, and overloaded legal systems can keep individuals imprisoned for extended periods before they even receive a trial. This situation raises concerns about constitutional rights and the principle that every person is innocent until proven guilty. Critics argue that justice delayed can become justice denied, especially for people who cannot afford strong legal representation. The treatment of mentally ill inmates at Rikers Island has also drawn national criticism. Many individuals suffering from mental health disorders end up in jail because of limited mental health care services outside the correctional system. Instead of receiving proper treatment in hospitals or rehabilitation centers, they're often placed in stressful detention environments that worsen their conditions. This has led experts to question whether the justice system is being forced to handle social and medical problems that should be addressed elsewhere. Violence, abuse allegations, and poor living conditions inside the jail have further damaged public confidence in the correctional system. Investigations and reports describing inmate assaults, excessive force, neglect, and unsafe environments have caused outrage among civil rights organizations and the general public. These incidents have led many Americans to question whether correctional institutions are truly achieving rehabilitation or simply creating more trauma and suffering. Rikers Island has also become a major focus in discussions about reform and accountability. Community leaders, human rights groups, and policymakers continue to debate how to improve the system through bail reform, alternative sentencing programs, improved mental health care, and investments in social services. Some officials have even proposed closing Rikers Island entirely and replacing it with smaller, modern facilities designed to provide safer and more humane conditions. The ongoing attention surrounding Rikers Island demonstrates how one jail complex can represent broader national issues connected to justice, equality, poverty, race, and human dignity. The debates surrounding the facility continue to influence conversations about how America should balance public safety with fairness, rehabilitation, and respect for individual rights. For many years, Rikers Island has been at the center of intense public debate, leading activists, lawyers, community leaders, and government officials to demand major reforms within the jail system. Growing reports of violence, overcrowding, poor healthcare, abuse allegations, and mental health crises have convinced many people that the facility can no longer continue operating in its current condition. Because of this, Rikers Island has become one of the most discussed correctional institutions in America regarding prison reform and human rights. Civil rights organizations and human rights activists have played a major role in bringing attention to the problems inside the jail. Through investigations, protests, documentaries, and legal actions, they have exposed stories of inmates suffering from violence, neglect, and unsafe living conditions. Families of detainees and former inmates have also shared personal experiences that increased public awareness about the harsh realities inside the facility. These voices have pressured political leaders to take action and consider long-term solutions. One of the biggest demands from reform groups is improving the treatment of inmates. Activists argue that detainees should be treated with dignity and respect regardless of the accusations against them. They believe jails should focus more on rehabilitation, education, healthcare, and mental health support instead of relying mainly on punishment and isolation. Many organizations have called for stronger protections against abuse, better training for correction officers, and improved medical services for vulnerable inmates. Mental health reform has become another major issue in discussions about Rikers Island. Experts and advocacy groups argue that many detainees suffering from psychological disorders should receive professional treatment rather than incarceration. They believe the jail system often worsens emotional trauma and mental illness because of stress, violence, and isolation. As a result, reform supporters have pushed for expanded counseling services, psychiatric care, and alternative treatment programs outside the jail system. Government officials in New York City have also recognized the seriousness of the problems. In recent years, city leaders announced plans aimed at reducing the jail population and eventually closing Rikers Island altogether. These proposals include replacing the large jail complex with smaller detention centers located in different boroughs of New York City. Supporters of the closure plan argue that smaller modern facilities would provide safer conditions, better oversight, and improved access to courts and family visits. The idea of closing Rikers Island has created both support and controversy. Many activists believe shutting down the jail would represent an important step toward criminal justice reform and human rights improvement. However, others worry about the challenges of replacing such a large facility and ensuring public safety. Questions about costs, staffing, transportation, and alternative detention systems continue to create political debate among lawmakers and community members. Reform discussions have also focused on reducing the number of people entering the jail system in the first place. Community leaders and social organizations argue that investments in education, housing, healthcare, employment opportunities, and youth programs could help prevent crime and reduce incarceration rates. They believe many social problems connected to poverty, addiction, and mental illness cannot be solved through imprisonment alone. The ongoing calls for reform and closure have transformed Rikers Island into a national symbol of the struggle to improve the American justice system. Public attention continues to grow as activists, legal experts, and political leaders debate how to create a system that protects society while also respecting human dignity and constitutional rights. The discussions surrounding Rikers Island are not only about crime and punishment, but also about human rights, fairness, and the importance of rehabilitation within society. Many experts, activists, and community leaders believe that the way a country treats its prisoners reflects its moral values and commitment to justice. Because of the conditions and controversies connected to Rikers Island, the facility has become an important example in debates about whether correctional systems should focus only on punishment or also on helping individuals rebuild their lives. Human rights organizations have repeatedly argued that every person, including inmates, deserves basic dignity and protection. Even when individuals are accused or convicted of crimes, they still have fundamental rights such as access to healthcare, protection from violence, fair legal treatment, and humane living conditions. Reports of abuse, Overcrowding, neglect, and unsafe conditions at Rikers Island have raised concerns that these rights are not always respected inside the facility. Critics believe no person should experience inhumane treatment regardless of their legal situation. Fairness is another major issue connected to the jail. Many people detained at Rikers Island come from disadvantaged communities where poverty, unemployment, poor education, and limited opportunities are common. Activists argue that social inequality often increases the likelihood of people becoming involved in the criminal justice system. Because of this, many believe true justice cannot exist without addressing the economic and social conditions that affect vulnerable populations. The situation at Rikers Island has encouraged wider discussions about equality before the law and whether all citizens receive the same opportunities and protections. The concept of rehabilitation has also become central to the debate. Traditionally, many correctional institutions focused mainly on punishment and strict control. However, modern reformers argue that prisons and jails should also help individuals change their lives through education, counseling, vocational training, and mental health support. They believe that people who receive guidance and rehabilitation are more likely to successfully return to society and avoid future criminal activity. At Rikers Island, critics say the harsh environment often makes rehabilitation difficult. Violence, fear, overcrowding, and emotional stress can create an atmosphere where survival becomes more important than personal growth. Inmates who struggle with addiction, trauma, or mental illness may leave the facility in worse condition than when they entered. This has led many experts to question whether the system is truly solving social problems or simply repeating cycles of suffering and incarceration. Programs aimed at rehabilitation have shown that positive change is possible when inmates receive proper support. Educational classes, job training, therapy sessions, and conflict resolution programs can help detainees develop skills and confidence for life after release. Supporters of reform believe these efforts not only benefit former inmates, but also improve public safety by reducing repeat offenses and helping people become productive members of society. The debates connected to Rikers Island continue to influence conversations across the United States about the future of criminal justice. Many people now believe that justice should include accountability while also recognizing the value of compassion, second chances, and human dignity. The facility has become a symbol of the difficult balance between maintaining law and order and protecting the rights and humanity of every individual within society.